Welcome to my new podcast, Live a Little. This is so exciting, so scary, but I can't wait for what this has in store. I've been working on this for such a long time now, and I'm so excited and scared about me putting this new little baby out into the world. I wanted to start Live a Little because I feel like, in my opinion, there isn't really a podcast that is deep, that is like meaningful, that kind of feels like a supportive big sister or little sister that you may not feel like you have, or supportive friend that you can just watch or listen to and feel connected with. Because I feel like a lot of our life, we have a lot that we're going through and don't necessarily feel like we have that person in our lives that we can talk to about it, or that is on the same page as us or gets it. And so much of life is just trying to navigate it, especially when you don't have all the answers and don't know what you're doing. And I feel like, though I've, in maybe like a more like outwards view, may have seen like I've achieved quite a bit of stuff, I also have no idea what I'm doing majority of the time. And I think a lot of us feel that way. So for me, Live a Little it kind of came from the idea that I've lived a lot of life. You could see, you know, I've won awards, I've interviewed people that I could have never imagined ever interviewing, I've just walked a fashion show. So it's that idea of like, I've lived a lot of life, but I've also lived very little. You know, I grew up with a chronic illness. I spent the majority of my childhood, that wasn't really a childhood, in and out of hospital, having treatment. So my growth as a person's kind of been stunted in a way with living normal life experiences. And then in another way, the whole idea of just live a little. You know, we all take life so seriously and are so hard on ourselves most of the time that we don't actually take a minute to appreciate where we are and this version of us and this version of our lives. And so it's the idea that we just need to take life less seriously and live a little, because it's too short, you know? So this is basically just an open discussion where each week we will talk about more kind of topic-based stuff, like figuring things out or navigating your 20s, or God, the horror that is dating apps, whatever it may be, and the occasional guest that might be on to join the journey with us. And other times it will just be an open discussion of whatever's on my mind that week. Maybe it's a series I'm watching, maybe it's an album I'm loving, maybe it's a horror that I've gone through that week, who knows. But ultimately, it's a journey about not having things figured out. And I think so much of life at the moment feels like optimizing yourself. Like, how can you be the best version of yourself? And we don't actually take a minute to just appreciate ourselves where we are. So yeah, enough of my spiel. That is my introduction to Live a Little. Thanks for joining this journey with me, and let's get into it. So what I wanted to talk about today is the pressure that is massive that you feel in your 20s to have things figured out. So many of my friends have just finished uni. I didn't go to uni, so I can't speak for them, but I feel like so many of them have just finished these degrees and have no idea what they're doing, and are trying to apply for jobs and are trying to navigate what life after uni looks like, and just don't know. And I think even in a sense of like, after you leave school, there are so many unanswered questions, and you're kind of just like, go fly, little bird. Like, there's no guidance to what you should be doing next and what's right and what's wrong. And it's difficult, I think. I felt like at school, though I did not enjoy school, I took for granted how easy it was in the, 5 days a week, I know where I'm going, I have hours that I'm there, I, you know, really luckily get to see people my own age and socialize 5 days a week. And it's all very easy. You don't need to try and make plans. You don't need to really give yourself anything to do or have any priorities or things that you need to be doing, because your sole purpose really for so much of that time is just go to school, do your homework. Like, those are your responsibilities, and then you leave school, and then there's so much more that's put on your plate, I feel like, as soon as you turn 18. And now recently turning 21, I feel like I'm just learning that your 20s are about not having it figured out. I feel like whenever I speak to my mum always tells me her 30s were her favorite years. And though I'm not wishing away my 20s, I think I'm learning that we're all in the same boat in a different way of being like, what am I doing? You know, what, like, I don't even know. I can't even decide what I want for breakfast, let alone what I want to do in life. And I'm privileged in the sense that I've kind of known from a very early age what I wanted to do in life in terms of a job, but I have no idea who I am as a person. And I spent so much of school, I think, fitting other people's molds of what was cool or what was liked, that I never really had my own identity or sense of self. And I think that's something that I only really have felt more like I'm coming into now that I'm 21, because I think I've realized life is so short, as I've kind of said, that unless you spend it trying to be the most authentic version of yourself, you're basically never going to be happy. And it's really difficult. I have always been such a people pleaser. Like, I've never taken up space in a room. It was so funny. I actually went for this, I went to this event and she gave me this 10-minute reading, and she was this life coach, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. And she was like, what can I help you with? And I just was at a loss for words. I had no idea what to tell her that I needed help with. I was like, where do I start? But she was like, okay, the first thing I want to tell you is that you keep sitting on the edge of your seat. And I was like, okay. And she was like, why are you just not letting the chair hold you? Like, why are you not just sitting in the chair and just kind of letting it hold your weight? Why are you constantly kind of sitting at the edge like you can't take up space? And I was like, oh, that hit me. And the fact that she read that in 1 minute of sitting down is crazy. And it's so true, people that command space in a room or in a job, as she was saying, a lot of men at times will sit in a chair and fully take it up and be like this. And it's so true that a lot of us don't do that. And it says so much more internally than you think. And so I think for me, it's just learning that I deserve to take up space, I guess. Of course, I don't need to be the loudest voice in a room, but I just never felt like my opinion was valid, my opinion was needed, that my presence would be missed kind of thing if I wasn't in a room, and that I had something good to say. And that is something that I'm still struggling with now, but I think it's just learning that all of us have things about ourselves that are things that we try and hide, but will in turn in 10 years time be the things that we wish we celebrated earlier. Me with my condition, me with my unique life opinions and perspective that I've learned through what I've been through. So I think I'm learning to just harness the things that for so long I've hated about myself and about my life into things that make it feel more worth living, sort of thing. So yeah, I feel like that's one of the big things that I'm learning, is to just try and learn to take up space, firstly. And secondly, I think it's just apologizing less. I feel like I've spent my whole life apologizing. Okay, there's a level of that which is just the British apologizing for literally nothing. You could breathe in someone's direction. I feel like being from the UK will be so sorry, even though there's no reason to apologize. And then you go to other places and realize that's just a UK thing. But I feel like I would just apologize for anything. And especially when it comes to if I reply to a text late, I'm I'm so sorry. And I feel like I need to give the longest spiel of why I didn't reply in time, or because I feel like I owe it to that person. And sometimes it's okay to just be you reply when you reply, unless it's urgent, that's okay. So I think I'm just trying to give myself more grace more than anything. The voice you hear in your head is the voice you hear most often. For me, 99% of the time, I'm talking to myself inside my head. So why not try and make that voice a kind one as often as you can? Because that's the one that you hear first thing you wake up, the last thing when you go to bed. So for me, it's there is no need to send paragraphs and paragraphs to someone because you feel bad that you took an extra few days to reply to someone. If they're a genuine person and they know you, they'll know that it's never with ill will. And so it's basically, yeah, I feel like I felt like I needed to constantly say sorry or do too much so that someone would stay my friend, because that's an internalized thing of never feeling good enough and things like that. And I'm just realizing that the right people will stay and the right people will understand. And friendship shouldn't feel hard. Of course, sometimes it's 50-50 effort, sometimes it's 70-30, but it shouldn't feel okay, you don't speak for a week and suddenly your world is flipped upside down and your friendship's no longer. Sure, that might be the case in primary school, secondary school. I definitely felt that. It was a contest of how often you spoke, which was then okay, how good friends you were. But in life, it's not that way. Some of my closest friends, that I've been friends with for 15 years, if not longer. My first friend at school that I've known since I was like 3 years old, we probably speak a couple times a month. But when we speak, it feels like no time has passed, because we get that that's where our friendship's at. And if we needed each other, we need each other. But that's okay. And so I think friendships can look so different when you're older. And it's not about quantity of time, but it's quality. And that's what I'm learning. And I think that's what's super, super special. And yeah, really nice. And then I guess my other thing that I wanted to talk about is just like, obviously it is not the new year. We are hitting near the end of 2025. I was about to say 2026. Oh my God, not me wishing the year away. There are so many things that, like, I've just stopped setting resolutions for myself. I just think when I set resolutions, I'm setting myself up to fail. You can have goals and you can have like, I would like to do this. But if you start setting resolutions, I've found, in my opinion, that it actually deters me from like wanting to do it. It's that thing of like, when your mum tells you to do something 3 times and you're like, oh, I'm not doing it now just because you told me to do it however many times. But when you can do it out of choice, then you will do it. And so for me, I just don't really set resolutions anymore. And I think I find it really difficult as like a year comes to a close, because so much of that then feels like a highlights reel, or like what I want to do next year. And like, it's too much, and it can feel really toxic and really overwhelming. You know, especially social media at times can feel like a highlights reel. And even mine, you know, I am guilty for posting my best bits. You know, I just walked in a fashion show and went to Paris Fashion Week, and of course I'm going to share that because it's exciting and cool. But I've really, really been trying to be as unfiltered as possible online the older I get. Even if it's not necessarily cool, I don't care, because that's real. And like, I think being real is so important these days more than ever. Yeah, I feel like for me, I'm just learning that it's okay to have wants for the year ahead and things you'd like to do more of. And I set a goal list, but ultimately I'm not going to tomorrow be doing 75 hard and never eating a sweet treat, or waking up at 5 in the 5 a.m. club, because that's just not me. I'm up till 2 a.m. watching The Office, and I eat dinner sometimes at like 11 p.m. Like, it's not attainable for me. And of course, I've got nothing wrong with like wanting better of yourself and like wanting to live a healthier lifestyle, but not to the point that it becomes toxic and like detrimental to your happiness and livelihood. And I think personally, everything in moderation. And yeah, I think it can just be really intense when everyone is just like, I've gone 75 days going to the gym, and like just all of these things that I just don't think are attainable at all unless you live a certain type of lifestyle. And so for me, I feel like I'm learning to just like, if I one day sit in bed and aimlessly scroll, bit annoying, I will think about all the better things or other things I could have been doing. But that's okay. I need to give myself grace and not be like, you're a bad person. You could have spent all these 2 hours doing this instead and getting stuff done. And like, you know, if that's what I feel like my body needs that day, then I just have to listen to my body. And I feel like we don't really spend enough time like intuitively listening to like what we need. And so I feel like what I'm trying to do is like, if I'm tired, then I give myself the grace to spend an hour extra in bed if I'm able to, because I need that time to just recharge. I'm a massive introvert, which might be something that you don't think about me, considering I do such a social job. Maybe it's because I do such a social job that I'm such an introvert. I don't know. If I don't give myself days just to literally sit by myself alone, I will go crazy. And so I think for me, my goals moving forward are just to listen to what my body needs, try my best to not compare what I'm doing to the highlights reel of other people's lives, and learn that, you know, even though I do this job and I know that is just the 1% of the time, learn that, you know, that is just the 1%, and everyone is sharing only their 1% in life. So yeah, I feel like that's really, really important. You know, you don't need to like have your whole life planned out or your whole year planned out. It's great to have goals, but you know, at the same time, I think if you just don't go with the flow and take each day as it comes, and you're so worried about what's next or what you haven't done, then you're not actually appreciating like this version of you and taking each day as it comes. So yeah, I think there's this like internalized belief that if we're still unsure or something's unfinished, then something's wrong with us. And if we're figuring out things slowly, then that's a problem. But I truly feel like the whole point of your 20s is to make mistakes and start taking one road and, you know, divert, or be like, okay, that didn't work, now I'm going this way. So yeah, I'm trying to I'm very type A, and I love having everything figured out. I like control. I hate not knowing things, but I'm just trying to embrace that not knowing things is the whole point of not just being in your 20s. It's every year and every day, but I'm trying to embrace that's the whole point of life, is not knowing. And it's the things that you can't plan for that will be some of the best things and hardest things that ever happened to you. So just try and embrace that in between messiness of it all, really. But yeah, it's hard being in your 20s. I think the biggest thing I've realized is no one has it figured out, and I'm quite lucky in the sense that I have two older siblings, so I've kind of watched both of them, my brother and sister, take very different routes in life and very different trajectories. That it's really helped me now navigating my 20s, because I have them as two crash test dummies who've gone through their 20s and are in their 20s to give me advice from. I feel like every day I'm a new version of myself, and I feel like that's the whole point of this era of life. So I wanted to introduce our segment called Little Thought of the Week, and it's basically a way to just be a bit more aware of something each week that comes up that you maybe would have gone a bit stir crazy for. I would have gone a bit stir crazy for, and just trying to be more aware of it and reframing how you think of it. So for me this week, my little thought is going to be, if something happens that doesn't necessarily go the way that I hope, or takes a different trajectory to what I pictured, or I didn't have control over it, which for me, especially because how my life's been, control is so important. The rail starts unrailing very quickly when I don't feel like I have control. But try and think about one time this week where you haven't, or a scenario where you haven't necessarily had control or the answer, and just acknowledge that was okay. You know, life didn't stop, things didn't shit didn't hit the fan, and you're still here and things are okay. And I think we spend so much time, or at least I do, catastrophizing the unknowns, the what if, oh my god, but this could have happened, that you actually don't appreciate okay, it didn't go that way, but it didn't go badly necessarily, it just went differently. And just let that thought move through you, instead of it just being the only thing that ruminates in your head. Okay, you didn't have control over it. Okay, it didn't necessarily go the way you'd have hoped, but it's happened now. Move on. And that's what I've not got a logical brain at all. I've got an emotional, reactive brain, and it's not good. And I'm learning that I really, really, really need to get a hold of it, because it's very I can't, I'm not logical at all, and I will just ruminate on things, and it will keep me up at night. And so I'm just really trying to learn, Nikki, breathe, and just let this move through you. It is actually not that deep. And that's what I'm just trying to, you can't control other people, but you can control how you react to things. And though sometimes it just happens and you can't control it, because before it's happened, your reaction. But that's what I'm trying to learn, is don't waste your energy stressing about this little thing when there's so much other stuff going on. Of course, you can be God, that was annoying, or why? Or be annoyed about something or angry and feel all those emotions. By all means, feel them. Don't just be everything's sunshine and rainbows and someone's really hurt my feelings, but I'm fine, because that will not end well either. But if you just have this idea of okay, everything I feel has to leave me, everything has to just go through me, so just breathe and just let it try and just let go of it. Just let go of it. I'm a real I need to hold on to everything, and it really pissed me off and I can't let go of it. It's not that deep. Let go. That's what I'm just trying to tell myself. I feel I tell my friends all of these things, and I find it very easy to tell them advice. We all do it, but I can never take my own advice. So I'm really trying to be girl, just take a chill pill, live a little. Quite literally, that's where I apply live a little. Just live a little and chill out, because I'm too highly strung for my own good, and it isn't good. So you don't have to rush to have a fix or a label in a moment. Just acknowledge it, and that's the practice. So acknowledge you didn't have the answers, but that didn't mean that something went badly. It just went differently, basically. Had a bad day at work, or someone really pissed you off? Annoying. Like, you can't control how they reacted, but you can control how much it affects you, type thing. So that's my little thought of the week for you to just try and like be more aware of. So that is the first episode of Live a Little complete. Thank you so much for listening. In future episodes, we'll talk about things like self-expression, friendship breakups, missed milestones, softness, hardness, and everything in between. And this isn't a podcast with all the answers. I haven't got them. So if you want a podcast that's going to tell you exactly what to do, this isn't the one. But it's a podcast to say that I hear you, especially if you don't feel like you have someone that you can talk to. I get it. And life is super hard. So let's try and navigate it together. I hope this feels like it's something you can come home to each week and just somewhere you can put on your laptop and sit in bed after a long day and listen to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and live a little.